Hi, everyone. Harold Samant here of MBA Mission, here in partnership with GMAT Club. Today, we're here to talk to you about the top 10 MBA programs. Very exciting stuff. Before we begin this video, though, I'm going to encourage everyone to please like our video. For the simple reason is the more you like it, the more people see it. The more people see it, then it justifies us for making them. So if you like our videos, by all means, like it, and we can create even more videos going forward. So today we're here to talk to you about the 10 top the top 10 EMBA programs. And I'm going to pause here and say, I actually want the title to be the top 10 EMBA programs for you. And what I mean by that is there are many different EMBA programs. And the reality is they can be quite different. Unlike regular full-time MBA programs, there's actually quite a bit of variability with regard to the top 10 programs in terms of length, cost, location, and that's something that we'll go over today. What I will say for those of you who are applying for EMBA programs now, in order to be a credible candidate at each school, you have to be able to distinguish one school from another, as well as indicate why that particular difference is most valuable for you, why you want to go to a particular program, give the reasons, particularly as they contrast with other schools. So with that in mind, let's get started. And so let's start off with a simple question of how are EMBA programs different? In particular, how are the top 10 EMBA programs different? So there's all sorts of things to consider as you look at an EMBA program. First of all, just what schools offer the executive MBA? Not every business school does. So we'll use that at least as the point of departure. How long is the typical EMBA program? When do EMBA programs start? How big is the EMBA class? Where will my EMBA program be located? What are the minimum expectations for work experience? Will an EMBA degree or an MBA degree be conferred upon me? That frequently is very important because employers will sometimes say they will pay for your business school, but it has to be an MBA degree. What is the cost of the EMBA program? Which EMBA programs require that I take the GMAT? Again, something that would be quite variable, but obviously very impactful. Will I be on campus at all? And if so, when will I be on campus? Great questions here. Okay, so let's start off with just talking about what are the top 10 EMBA programs, and in particular, which top schools have EMBA programs and which do not. So very quickly, you'll see here, of the top programs, Stanford, Harvard, and Dartmouth do not have EMBA programs. Sometimes they have substitutes for EMBA programs. In particular, Harvard Business School has a whole range of certificate programs. The issue with certificate programs, they're usually quite narrowly focused, and they don't seem to give a boost in a career the way that a full EMBA does. So after looking at some rankings, particularly U.S. News and World Report, what we're seeing here for the top 10 EMBA programs is Chicago Booth, UPenn Wharton, Northwestern Kellogg, Columbia Business School, Michigan Ross, NYU Stern, Duke, Berkeley, MIT Sloan, and UCLA Anderson. So let's just go through here at some of the differences and where there are real standouts, where there are outliers. How long is the typical EMBA program? And when does an EMBA program start? So again, there can be quite a bit of variability here in the sense of roughly they're 2 years, roughly they start in August or September. But the reality is, as you can see, you have Columbia, you can start essentially 3 times a year. It can be as short as 16 months. And for some folks, particularly who are around New York or your applications haven't quite come together well, then Columbia may make perfect sense for you. For folks who want simply a specific cohort that starts mid-year, that really allows everyone to sort of march through together, then maybe Booth is a better choice for you when all said and done. How big is the EMBA class and how big will my network be? And that's a really important second question. So how big is the EMBA class As you can see, some of the programs are scattered over a few different locations, 2 or 3. So even though you may see the size being in that 200 range roughly, or 150 person range roughly, at the end of the day, for most schools, you're looking at a particular location at about roughly 70 people here. Roughly 70 people in your different cohorts. There are a couple of outliers. Southern Methodist University in Dallas has only 80. Michigan has only 80, but it includes 2 locations, so it's only 40. And again, there are certainly some advantages for a small program. You develop very deep relationships with a small group of people. However, the issue is if you are going to get an EMBA, for that matter, an MBA, specifically to build your network, then one of the issues you face is you're going to have a small group of alumni just over the years. Clearly, if a program is only producing 40 or 80 graduates a year, after 10 years, that's far different from a program like Booth that is producing 225 a year, 224 a year. I think also it's worth pausing here in the sense of some of these programs are actually affiliated with universities that are huge, that are just very, very big. So that's something else to keep in mind. On the one hand, you say, okay, SMU, Dallas doesn't have a particularly big program, but what people should know, and if you sort of scratch around a little bit, what you have to recognize is SMU is a huge school. Also, it is a very committed alumni base. So don't be distracted by the small size of your particular EMBA program. Similar with UCLA. UCLA, again, one would say, roughly a little bit of a bigger class, I should say. A little bit of a bigger class. But please keep in mind, UCLA, again, is a huge 20 or 30 or 40,000 person school. Huge active alumni. So at the end of the day, you can leverage the alumni network. Same with University of North Carolina, huge alumni network, very devoted, very, very committed alumni. So that, again, is something to consider. For international students in particular, I say to them, if you want to figure out the best program for you, again, business school or executive MBA program, maybe even more so, you have to see what the alumni base is in your own location. Best way of doing that is honestly getting in touch with the local alumni chapter of whatever school. And what you will see is certain schools have great reputations in certain countries. Some of the Chinese Duke alumni groups are very active. Even though on the one hand, Duke is in North Carolina, what would one think that in your particular location there'd be a huge alumni network? The answer is there may be. So as people think about what schools to apply to, as you recognize how important relationship building and networking is, by all means, call around in your local city and see which school has a very large alumni network. And that's probably the place you want to be. And or at least that's a very important consideration. Where will my EMBA program be located or taught? Is it near you? As you will see, and it is happening more and more, many EMBA programs now have multiple locations. You can see here, Chicago has Chicago, London, and Hong Kong. Clearly, San Francisco, clearly New York City are going to be some locations. This also then gets into this issue of what I would say convenience. For an executive MBA program, it is not unusual you are out on campus a couple of times a month. It is not unusual that you have to be there from Friday to Sunday or whatever it is, Thursday night to Saturday. And honestly, it can be very inconvenient, and it absolutely affects the quality of your education, the quality of your experience. So with that in mind, by all means, look and be realistic. Can you actually get to a location and you're not going to make your life crazy? I think that's it. So the one thing is I just highlighted a couple of schools here. Kellogg has a location in Miami. And there are very few top MBA programs, EMBA programs in Florida, despite Florida and Miami being one of the largest and fastest growing cities in the United States. So if you are thinking about spending your life in the Southeast, particularly Florida, Kellogg could be a perfect choice for you in the sense that it really has a dominant position when it comes to top EMBA programs in Florida. The flip side is a place like Michigan Ross. There are certainly great reasons to attend an EMBA program in Michigan Ross. Ann Arbor is lovely. It has a huge footprint in the Midwest of the United States. That said, to get to Ann Arbor, Michigan, a couple times a month, that's difficult. That is difficult. You have to fly in Detroit. It's really a pain to get there. As opposed to, for example, SMU in Dallas. Dallas is easy to get to. By all means, North Carolina is, Los Angeles is easy to get to. North Carolina is actually easy to get to. But other places that are a little bit harder to work your way towards. I would also say to international candidates, the possibilities of Chicago, of University of Chicago, London, Hong Kong make it, I think, very interesting for folks who are coming from one of those locations. Okay, and then what are the minimum expectations for work experience? Listen, generally EMBA programs, you're going to basically find yourself in that 8 to 12 year range. Obviously, some will be a little older, something to consider as you yourself are older, and some will be a little bit younger. Duke traditionally, including with its full-time MBA program, takes younger folks, something to consider. But at the end of the day, there can be quite a wide range of students. But so let this be an at least initial guide as you get to know the programs over time. Okay, all of the top programs provide an EMBA degree, confer an MBA degree. All these top EMBA programs confer an MBA degree, and that's good. And one of the reasons it's good is frequently from the perspective of the employer, where they frequently will say, it's okay if you go do a part-time MBA, but we want it to be an MBA program and not something else, which again is just one of many reasons people choose not to do a certificate program at Harvard Business School, for the simple reason it is not a full terminal degree, as they say, fairly narrowly focused, and also frequently employers will not reimburse for something that is not an MBA program. Listen, when it comes to cost, obviously a key consideration, and just another consideration. It's sort of interesting. We're going to go through program by program, but it's sort of interesting that there are true outliers there. University of North Carolina, and again, top 10 program. Let me sit here and explain why University of North Carolina may be worth going to, even though it doesn't necessarily bubble up the same way Booth or Columbia does. If you're going to be in the Southeast, if you have access to Durham, North Carolina, it's a airport. It's a hub airport, so most folks can make it there fairly easily. A fantastic alumni network, huge, great reputation in the Southeast. Only $88,000 a year. Wow, that is quite the bargain. Recognizing that you're building roots and you're building a reputation down in the Southeast. For other folks, it simply may not make a lot of sense. But UCLA, West Coast, $167,000 a year. Wow. Again, that is great reputation, huge alumni network, and saving $50,000 a year or so is certainly worth it. But of course, there's all sorts of considerations when it comes to business school. Will I be on campus? And if so, when will I be on campus? Again, being on campus is significant for a few different reasons. You probably all know that. Developing relationship with your classmates, that's certainly a piece of it. Quality of teaching, that's certainly a piece of it, but also convenience. As we talked about before, Michigan Ross, 2 off-campus residencies, Friday through Saturday monthly. It's hard to get to Michigan. I don't want to overstate it, anything possible, but not quite as centrally located as some other schools. Great reasons to go to Michigan, wonderful business school, very big footprint in the Southeast United States, the Midwest, but still something to consider as it is for other programs as well. What I like about Duke in particular is they have their global program, and it really allows you to build a deep relation cohort with folks, even though you're actually not on Duke's campus. You are actually, or I guess you are for a short amount of time, but you are in locations all across the world. And that itself can be, in some ways, almost more convenient for people who are located other places. So let's talk a little bit about the top 10 programs right now. And what I'm going to suggest people do, I'm going to be taking a short break in about 10 minutes to allow people to list out some questions. So start thinking about some questions and you can add them in the comments. Okay, so let's talk about Northwestern. A top school in the U.S. By all means, one of the top 10 EMBA programs. What makes it interesting, and we sort of alluded to before, two entry points, straight 24 months on the longer side of programs, two entry points, which is great. I think we're bubbling up to that same cohort of about 80 people, whatever location you're in. Again, location's truly unique for Kellogg is its Miami location. There's some other international locations, but again, it's hard to beat a Kellogg if you're thinking about living your life in Southeast United States. I like the fact it doesn't require a GMAT. I think that's it. Thursday through Sunday monthly in Miami, central to huge airport. You can get there from a lot of places. Okay, Chicago Booth. The thing about Chicago Booth, and it's really getting itself just a huge reputation, truly an international school. Locations, and they do it differently from some other schools, full programs in Chicago, London, and Hong Kong. You can see prices are adjusted accordingly. I think at the end of the day, if you're thinking about an American program in London or Hong Kong, you must include Booth. And quite interestingly, it is even a little bit cheaper than some of the other programs. And what I happen to like about Booth also, huge school, huge network. And that, again, bodes well depending on where you are. So by all means, for folks who are a little farther away or international students, just see what the University of Chicago Alumni Network is in your local area. And I suspect it will actually be quite big. Okay, Southern Methodist University in Dallas. Many of you may not have heard of it being a top 10 program. And the thing about Southern Methodist University, huge football school for those of you who follow football, a little bit of an older program, meaning the average student's a little bit older, a little bit of a shorter program, a cheaper program, significantly so, possibly even half the cost of some of the other programs. Dallas, wonderful city, maybe one of the fastest growing cities in the United States, huge alumni network, huge dedicated alumni network. Again, maybe you originally didn't think of an SMU, but the reality is Texas is huge, and sort of it is a place that many people want to be, and huge network. It's honestly should be part of your consideration set if you think you're going to be spending a lot of time in Texas in that region over the course of your life, your professional career. Okay, UPenn Wharton is actually, as we know, one of the most prestigious executive MBA programs. Some things not to like about it is that you are required to have a test score. I believe there's a waiver, but I'm not possible. You're looking at a slightly younger cohort. I'll tell you one thing that has really gotten me excited about Wharton is their San Francisco program. And Wharton has really pushed themselves to create a great San Francisco experience. They now have their own campus right in downtown San Francisco, which other schools don't. In fact, even you think about Berkeley or Stanford, they are not in San Francisco. Wharton has sort of a great connection to the local community. So for those folks who are either out in West Coast now in California, or thinking about it, or thinking about tech, or thinking about the startup world, and want, I would say, baby steps into the startup world, then certainly Wharton San Francisco, EMBA in San Francisco could be really attractive. And again, if you sort of think about locations of EMBA programs, there's simply on a lot on the West Coast. Certainly, this is the most prestigious of the schools on the West Coast as far as an executive MBA goes. There's Berkeley. Certainly, there is UCLA. Certainly, there's University of Southern Carolina. Certainly, but when it comes to prestige, particularly, I would say international prestige, it's really hard to beat Wharton. Okay, UCLA. Talking about California. Talking about UCLA. What I always tell folks, again, a little bit of a larger cohort, maybe even twice as big as some of the other cohorts, which again cuts both ways in the sense of you're going to have a lot of peers, you're going to have a much larger network, and again, thinking very broadly. UCLA is a tremendous brand, particularly on the West Coast. UCLA has, I don't know, the alumni number, 50,000, 100,000, whatever it is, it's big. So as you think about how you want your career to progress and the relationships you want to build and what sort of brand name you want on your resume and the size of the alumni network to really allow you to maybe enter fields you had no other possibility with, UCLA is certainly worth looking at. And again, it is a Western school. It looks out to the West, particularly towards Asia. And from the perspective of just cost, it's a little bit less than average. So from that perspective, I think it should always be considered. And Los Angeles, you can get there from anywhere. Okay, Columbia Business School, I think, is a really interesting program. And I think what makes it particularly interesting is the amount of flexibility. As you can see, there is a tremendous amount of, there's quite a bit of variability in terms of the length of the program. You can do it really fast, 16 months. I think that's in New York. You can do it, you can start many different times of year. You can end up actually going to class, obviously New York, but also other places around the world. Mexico City is very rare to have a top EMBA program there, or I should say a top international EMBA program there. If one is thinking about Columbia, then by all means do your research, because there's Columbia but it comes in all sorts of different flavors. And I think when it comes to Columbia, again, great reputation, but is really pushing itself to be very flexible for folks and helping people really understand what the options might be for the different schools. Okay, University of Michigan. At this point, a little bit of an older program, a little bit of a cheaper program. When all said and done, no GMAT required. Ann Arbor, Michigan is a wonderful place to be. It is somewhat hard to get to, though. University of Michigan Business School is a fantastic business school, full-time program. The building is beautiful. Everything about it is new, has been really tremendous, growing tremendously, has a real vision for itself. If you're going to be in the Midwest, then by all means, this should be probably, Kellogg, Booth, Michigan. Those are the places you want to be, I think, when all said and done. Okay, everyone. I hate to do this, but I'm having a little bit of technical problems here. I'm going to put everyone on hold for about 1 minute. And what I'm going to ask people to do is put some questions in the comments, and I will be right back. Hey, everyone. Sorry about that. I am back, and hopefully with some good reception here. So we're just talking about Michigan. Let's talk about University of North Carolina. Admittedly, I'm biased because my wife's from North Carolina. And what I will absolutely say about it is it's a wonderful school. It is a fantastic school, growing, tremendously growing in reputation, though not necessarily growing in other ways. It's actually a very small program, and that's something to really keep in mind. I will say one thing. It is a very good deal when all said and done. If you're in the Chapel Hill region, which is, to take a step back here, University of North Carolina and Duke are in a place called Research Triangle Park, of which the center is the city of Raleigh. in which there's the Raleigh-Durham Airport, and the Raleigh-Durham Airport is a hub for most major airlines, so you can get in and out of there very quickly and very easily and very economically. So if you had not thought about it before, travel or location should not make you pause. And what I also say is that it has certain specialties that are probably worth looking at. And in many ways, that could be a driver for why you choose University of North Carolina. It is one of the most outstanding real estate programs. And as you're thinking about as an EMBA student, whether you're thinking about staying in real estate and possibly moving over to real estate, that would be a good reason to go to University of North Carolina. Again, has a huge devoted alumni network. And also what I think is really unique about University of North Carolina is its focus on energy. So as we think more about sustainability, as you think about companies taking on environmental issues, EMBA from University of North Carolina could give you maybe the high octane you need to actually start being the sustainability person in your organization. Again, the way it is, the way that it's organized is has a lot of different choices there. Some obviously some evenings, some weekend, different start times. So if you had not considered University of North Carolina before, take a look at it. If nothing else, take a look at it. Okay, NYU Stern is what I would say your classic EMBA program. It's in New York City. It's 22 months long, starting January or August, about 60 people per class. Average years of work experience a little bit older, around $200,000 a year, no GMAT required. This is your classic program. It is particularly strong, obviously, if you're local. But at this point, New York City, listen, it's the center of the business world, as Columbia would have you believe. And from that perspective, it's a very exciting place, but it is fairly standard, both for good and for bad. Okay, Duke, we've already been talking a little bit about Duke. What Duke, I think, is really interesting because it has this global program. It used to be called like a worldwide EMBA. So it is actually a global EMBA to the point that in the past, you did not have to actually come to Durham. Apparently, that's been changing. But from that perspective, it is incredibly focused on having a big footprint worldwide. Also, it is a program that's a little bit shorter. So that in itself has its advantages. Wide variability in terms of how much work experience they have. Duke, including the full-time program, the 2-year MBA, and as well as the executive MBA, they seem to accept people who are a little bit younger. So for those people who, hey, maybe you're just starting a little bit early in your career, Duke should be considered. And again, it has such a presence really across the world that could be a reason in its favor. Let me do this. Let me pause a little bit here, and then we'll talk about MBA mission itself and GMAT Club. So as far as GMAT Club goes, by all means, please like this video. By liking this video, more people will see it, and then we'll end up doing more videos. Before I answer your questions, let me just tell you a little bit about us, MBA mission. We are, and we're the number one MBA admissions consulting firms out there. We're number one across every single dimension that you can imagine. Go into Poets and Quants, look at our reviews, look at our results. At the end of the day, we do our job very, very well. And what I would also say is, obviously, we're selling services, but by all means, take a look at some of our different free resources as well. There is a lot online. There's a lot on our website. There's a lot of videos that we do frequently with GMAT Club, so by all means, like this video. A lot of guides that we provide online. Probably the most significant thing the biggest value that we add online is everyone gets a free 30-minute consultation with an MBA mission senior consultant like myself or like any one of my 20 plus colleagues. And that 30 minutes is for you. We're not there to sell you anything. Of course, we'll tell you what our services are, but we're not there to sell you anything. Tell us your story, ask your questions about applying for an MBA, applying for EMBA, and it'd be our pleasure to help you think that through. Okay, and as far as services that we do provide, we call complete start to finish package, every piece of the application process. A la carte hourly services, you have 1 or 2 issues, buy a couple of hours with us. Mock interview sessions, this can be really valuable. particularly for schools like Harvard, which has a truly unique, extremely difficult interview. Certainly for a place like Wharton, where we have an actual team-based discussion simulation. For those of you who don't know, Wharton has a group interview component to it. We help people prep for that. And for those of you who may be a couple years away, we even help you with pre-application strategy, how you can work on your profile to maximize your chances of acceptance. Our team, go on our website. There's some great people there, all sorts of different backgrounds, go to all sorts of different schools, very skewed towards the very top schools. Obviously, Harvard MBAs. I myself went to MIT Sloan, so from that perspective, we have all bases covered. We'll now turn to Q&A, but just a couple of highlights again. There you can see my email, harold@mbamission.com. If you have any questions, by all means, reach out to me. I still strongly encourage people to do their free consultation. 30 minutes, free, no reason not to do it. Okay, let me pause now. I'm going to leave this up, and let me pause and look through some of your questions and comments. Okay, Kapil, why not a part-time MBA? Why is the full-time more valued, even if the part-time degree is from an Ivy League university? Obviously, great question. In actual fact, most of the top programs don't have part-time programs. And part-time program is traditionally for people who are younger, who are in a job that they will be really remaining in, and it's really for skill development. A part-time program you do on your own pace. You don't really have a cohort. You can, but you don't really have a cohort. An executive MBA program is actually what it sounds, in the sense of you are becoming an executive. At that point, we're not looking at skill development. At that point, you should know accounting or marketing. You are looking for opportunities to figure out who you are as a leader and develop your leadership skills. It is for people who are going from really a tactical role to a role that is truly a strategic role, a general management role. So from that perspective, if you are ready to make the move, really, big jump in your career, it's an executive MBA program. If you're looking to develop skills on certain subject matter, it's a part-time program. If you're younger, part-time program. If you're older, executive MBA program. And again, many schools have part-time programs. Most of the top schools do not. Can you please share these slides? Check it out with GMAT Club. I think we only post the video. But I would encourage you to do a 30-minute consultation with you, and hopefully we can help you a little bit more directly. Executive MBA is evening, weekend MBA. Which one is better for entrepreneurship? Yeah, absolutely great question. Frequently, when you say executive MBA versus an evening, weekend MBA, they're actually the same. Most executive MBAs are only evening and weekends. Which one is better for entrepreneurship? Executive MBA programs are traditionally not for entrepreneurs, honestly. It is really for people who are in a job that they like. However, they want to go from tactical role to a strategic role. Just looking through here. I had another question up there from Kapil. Yes, about sharing the slides, I guess, and about part-time versus executive MBA program. Okay, very good then. Like I said, by all means, reach out to us if you have questions. By all means, sign up for your free 30-minute consultation. And certainly like this video, so then we can do more of them. Any other questions, by all means, I'll give you about 10 seconds to post them. Otherwise, I'm just going to say thank you to everybody, and remember MBA mission just as you go through this process of applying to business school. Everyone, good luck in this process, and hopefully we will be hearing from you soon.